Today on the Dad the Best I Can show.
Probably one of the biggest things that we've done, and my wife actually taught me how to say this, is you go figure it out. I used to like to help them and do it for them and all that. That's not the right way. The best way to do is just say, hey, you can figure it out, you can do it, and then make sure you tell them how proud you are of them.
Hey now, welcome to the Dad the Best I Can show. My name is Rob Roseman. Who wants to be a millionaire legend? Chicago futures trader, Vegas poker pro. Now I'm a dad to 3 kids, ages 6, 4, and 1. Phew! Wears me out just thinking about it. Each week we're bringing on dads like you to tell us your stories, your tips and tricks to help all of us make it through dad life. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now let's get on with the show. Today on the show we're lucky to be joined by Hollis Barnhart. Hollis is 66 years old, and he's spent 64 of those years living in Las Vegas, so you know he's got some stories. Hollis has 4 kids, 16 grandkids, and 3 great-grandkids. Hollis is going to talk to us about why he's a better grandpa than he was a dad, why he thinks it's so important for kids to figure things out themselves. Hollis is going to tell us a story where he tried to chase down someone robbing a casino. I actually saw this with my own eyes. Hollis, you're a wild man. And he'll tell us a touching story about his grandson, Carson, and how people have rallied behind him so he can get well. Let's do this. All right, Hollis, thanks for joining us today on the Dad the Best I Can show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, and it's so nice to hear from you. I really always enjoy hearing from you, Rob.
Yes, it's always a pleasure with you, Hollis. On the Dad the Best I Can show, we like to start off with some rapid fire questions to warm you up. Are you ready to go?
Absolutely.
All right. What's one word your wife would use to describe you?
Nutcase.
You always deliver, Hollis. What's the first car you ever owned?
Volkswagen, 1970.
What's your favorite car that you ever owned?
My little Mercedes convertible.
What's your favorite drama movie of all time?
Well, it's Casino. I don't know if that's a drama, but Casino is my favorite, only because Lefty Rosenthal, who the star was, he ended up working for me.
Favorite comedy movie ever?
Cousin Vinny. My Cousin Vinny. I love it.
Favorite stand-up comic?
Well, now you're dating me, but let's go back to George Carlin.
Favorite place to vacation?
Oceanside at the pier, right on the beach. Go there all the time.
What is your favorite restaurant in Las Vegas?
T-Bones at the Red Rock. Great steaks.
Who's your favorite musician of all time?
Well, of all time, recently it's Adele, but if you go to my favorite musicians, probably back in the 60s, like The Doors, somebody like that.
I've heard a rumor that you're a singer, you're a crooner, but I don't think I've ever heard you sing. Would you do 10 seconds for us on the spot?
One pill makes you larger and one pill makes you small. And the one that mother gives you doesn't do anything at all. Go ask Alice when she's 10 feet tall. And you know what? The reason I like that song is this is something that people don't know about, but I used to have a really bad, substance abuse problem, and I haven't had it for 25 years, but I like to go back to that song to make sure I don't take any pills and alcohol and things like that.
What is the best live show you've ever seen?
Live show in Vegas, Siegfried and Roy. I saw that probably 150 times.
What's the biggest bet or sports bet you've ever seen or placed?
The biggest one I ever saw was that I placed was a $7,500 2-team parlay. And I remember it like it was yesterday. It was Ohio State and the under. And I think it was like a 1-point game. And the final score was 10-6 or 13-10. But I mean, it was solid.
Was it a winner?
Yeah, I won it.
Oh, awesome. All right. Well, that leads into some of our Vegas talk. I met you, Hollis, at a poker table where I meet a lot of interesting people. And the more we got to know each other, the more interesting you got. So I know I guess you grew up in Las Vegas. Is that right?
Well, we've been a resident since 1954, which is 64 years. And, when you know that Vegas was a real young town, almost nobody that is my age of 66 graduated from high school in Las Vegas, and I happened to graduate in Vegas many, many years ago.
I'm sure you've seen plenty of crazy gambling stories. Can you tell us one of your favorite gambling stories ever in Las Vegas?
I don't know if this is a gambling story, but the Bellagio Bandit. We used to have a game at the Suncoast, and the Bellagio Bandit, he was some wacko crazy guy, Tony Corleo, and he came in there and robbed us. And he came in at 12:30 at night on the only night that we played there that week. So I knew it had to be an inside job. I chased him out, and as I'm chasing him out, they're screaming, "Hey, he's got a gun! He's got a gun!" So I'm outside, and there's about 20 feet between me and him, and he's on a motorcycle. But at the time, I didn't even know it was him. Then he sped off, and 10 days later, he robbed the Bellagio hotel out of $2.2 million in chips, and then immediately started playing back in our game again. So that was kind of interesting. They finally caught him. He wasn't a very good criminal. And just recently, I think this summer, Rolling Stone magazine came out to Ely prison and did a big interview with him, and then came and interviewed me, and then they published it. Pretty cool.
So yes, I was at the Suncoast the night that the masked Bellagio Bandit came in. That was a crazy thing, and who knew it would turn into such a huge story? A few days later with the Bellagio being robbed, I couldn't even believe it was the same person.
Table?
I was at the table. We got under the table when a guy came in.
So you saw me chase the guy out.
I thought you were a crazy person, but that's as I came to know, that's just your MO. You're just going to go for it.
Well, you know what? That place was so good to me, and it was like my living room, and it was like somebody coming into my house with a gun trying to rob my friends, and I'm like, I'm not standing here putting up with that. And I know it was stupid to chase a guy with a gun, and I didn't have any clue it was even somebody I knew because he had that helmet on and long sleeves. You couldn't tell if it was a guy, a girl, or what, So it was kind of dumb to chase after a guy with a gun, I have to admit.
Well, you're like a cowboy. That's why we love you, Hollis.
There you go.
Let's talk a little bit about your life as a dad and now a grandpa. And how many kids do you have and grandkids?
Well, first of all, I just turned 66 on Halloween. And I'll tell you what was so cool about that. On October the 31st, 66, the next day, I couldn't believe it, on November the 1st, I had a check for $2,500 for my Social Security in the bank.
America, what a country. It really works, huh?
But in one day, dealing with the government, I could not believe that. So anyway, grandkids get more money. 4 kids, 16 grandkids, and 3 great grandkids. And another thing, when all the kids were like growing up, I used to have the biggest Christmases, and then I thought, this is ridiculous. And so I thought, all right, well, we've already established a crazy tradition, so eventually they'll move out and I won't have Christmas anymore. I never counted on them having all these kids. So now it's bigger than ever. So I went from 4 kids to 16 grandkids for Christmas. That's how it multiplies.
Tell us a little bit about things you've learned over the years as a dad and that you might want to tell other dads out there.
Well, the thing about dads is it's fun. Make sure that you keep it fun. But also remember, whatever you show them now, they're going to be, they probably already seen it anyway, but it's about setting an example, teaching them. But probably one of the biggest things that we've done, and my wife actually taught me how to say this, is you go figure it out. I used to like to help them and do it for them and all that. That's not the right way. The best way to do is just say, hey, you can figure it out. You can do it. And then make sure you tell them how proud you are of them.
Something that we lack today is giving kids their independence and saying, yeah, my kid wants a different toy at McDonald's. I'm not going to go ask for him. If he wants to go up there, I say, you go up to the cashier and you say, I don't like this toy. I assume he'll walk back empty-handed, but he goes up there and he acts brave, and it's kind of exciting to see.
I love it when they do that. I had a little 4-year-old trying to put his socks and shoes on the other day, and he was so happy that he accomplished that. And normally I would just say, I'm in a hurry here, sit on my lap, and I'd slap him on and all that stuff. But he was fantastic. And then I remember my one of my granddaughters, I heard her telling grandma, she says, you know what? My mom never tells me she's proud of me. And that, again, another lesson for me, a reminder to sit there and tell them how proud you are.
Let's take a quick break to talk about our Dad Tip of the Week for you, brought to you by Kickstart Reading. At Kickstart Reading, you can watch 2-minute videos that teach your kid how to read. This is how I taught my 5-year-old going into kindergarten how to read, and now my 4-year-old in pre-K is learning to read with these videos now too. Best part? 2 minutes. What dad doesn't have time for 2 minutes? Come on, guys. Go to kickstartreading.com and use the code DADTHEBEST to get your first month free. That's kickstartreading.com. On the show, we like to do one dad tip of the week. I'm sure you have hundreds of them. What is one that you'd like to tell our dads out there?
I'll tell you one thing, and I do this, thank goodness I do this all the time, is with the 10, 12, 14, 16-year-olds. They have seen me in front of my computer, and I don't just tell them it's I tell them this is my homework. I set the example. So that way it's so much easier to say, hey, what about your homework? Did you do your project? Did you do your homework? And it's easier for them to say that they've seen me always doing it and setting the example. So it's easier to get them to do it.
That's a good tip. That's awesome. Did you do these things when you were a dad, or is this stuff you've learned now as a grandpa?
I'd have to say I was not the best dad. I spent too much time away from the house because of business. I did not do these things. I did these things mainly for being a granddad. I'm a fantastic grandpa, and wasn't that great as a dad. I mean, wasn't bad, but wasn't great. I could have been a lot better.
You were having a good time in Vegas, I imagine.
Well, two things. One, I was having a very good time in Vegas. Imagine this. You're in your 20s. You're in a 3-piece suit. You're in a big major hotel. You're food and beverage director. Well, that time I was assistant. You got comp power, where you can walk up and sign for drinks and food and gourmet rooms and showrooms, lounge shows. It's just, it goes to your head a little bit. And plus you're working, you usually start at 6 at night. You don't finish until 2, 3 in the morning. So then you think, well, no one's at the house, so I may as well go out after that and wind down. And, it's just not great for raising children when you're never there. That's tough.
Well, and you're a lot wiser than you were in your 20s too. It's, you guys started so early having kids. It's amazing, like how we knew how to do anything back then.
Well, that's true. I really didn't learn anything until I believe I was 42, and that started. So from 42 to that's what 62, 20, 24, 25 years. I've had a very good hands-on learning experience, and I took advantage of it. I didn't throw a fit, but I changed everything. Absolutely changed my entire person.
That's one thing that's true. We should always be changing. Every 5 years, you should look back and say, I didn't know what I was doing back then.
Well, I write goals out and stuff like that so I could see, throughout the year. And I've always said that if you write something down, you will triple them or quadruple them, or you won't even recognize them a year later if you really get busy. Well, that's usually, I've always applied that in business. I didn't know you could apply it to your own personal well-being and your personal growth, things like that. It was setting an example, and that I'm very big on setting the example. I'm very big on getting them to read. Even, I would say every kid that I got to read, all the grandkids, all started on comic books.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't matter as long as they're reading. That's what I didn't care what it was.
Right. And make it fun for them.
Yeah. And then the other things that I teach them a little bit is one musical instrument. I don't care if it's piano or singing or dancing or violin or cello, whatever it is, pick one, and you don't have to stay with it. I mean, I'm not a drill sergeant, but I just want you to get that experience. And then usually I get them, started in golf, but I don't just, I do it the right way there too. I hire a golf pro because I believe in people are better than I am, and let them give them golf lessons, and they get experience. And I know down the road when they're in their 20s, they're going to go to a party. So having a musical background or sitting down at somebody's house and playing the piano, a couple songs or whatever, hey, now you're the life of the party. You can network. Same thing with golf. You meet many customers, many clients, many friends, many social gatherings, and it's great to get outdoors.
Before we go, tell us a little bit about your grandson, Carson, because I know that's a really important story to hear.
About my grandson was perfect, 5 months old, and then on a Sunday he was great, and Monday all of a sudden he woke up paralyzed on his left side, and and vomiting everywhere. They rushed him to the hospital. They did tests and all that, and found out he had a horrible tumor, brain tumor. So they did the operation within a couple of days, and he came out smiling and laughing. And we thought, wow, must have got it. And when they did the pathology report, they came up and said, this is the worst case scenario. It's one of the most aggressive tumors ever that they've seen. Only 3 people have made it past 1 year old. He did 4 treatments. They did an MRI probably about 3 weeks ago, and he was there was no presence of a tumor, which doesn't mean it can't come back, but man, it was great, no presence. So in the meanwhile, we did a GoFund, and we raised $36,000, and GoFund loved this kid and the smiles, and everybody just took him in. And so they gave back their 8.5%. And then the Buffalo Bills, he's from Buffalo, they got together, did a team helmet. The Buffalo Sabres did a team hockey stick. They just did a function the other day. The front page of the Buffalo newspaper last Friday or Saturday had the whole story all across the headlines, the front page, the pictures, everything about this benefit for him that night. What happens is my daughter-in-law, she had to quit a huge job just to care for him 24/7, because when you go in for chemo at Boston's Children's Hospital or Buffalo, you have to check in with the child. So if he's there for 3 days, you're there 3 days, 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a hardship it just changes your whole life, because you have no job. You got just to care for him. My son, he had to cut down on his job because he's got to watch the other 2 kids. And right now, he's fantastic.
Oh, it's great to hear. And I'm glad you shared his story, because, we're all rooting for him.
I'll be out there. In fact, I'm leaving to see. I've never seen him. I was going to go see him, and I'm so busy in the fall. And then when he got sick and all that stuff, I thought, you know what? I don't need to go out there with who knows what I'm carrying. So I'm leaving December 15th. It'll be the first time I even get to see him. So I just cannot wait to go back there, see my son, my other 2 grandkids, and to see Carson Barnhart.
Well, Hollis, this is awesome. I know you as the gambler with some stories, but it's really cool to hear some of your dad and grandpa stories as well. Where can we learn a little bit more about your book and a little bit more about you?
Well, on the book, it's P.S. Grandma Says. I named it after Grandma, even though Grandpa wrote it, because I never figured that anybody would listen to a grandpa when it's about giving advice. For my sports wagering, I'm on vegaswinners.com.
Nice, Hollis. Well, and if they can't find you there, I know they can find you at the Red Rock Poker Room in Las Vegas.
At the Red Rock every night. I try to get there around 6 o'clock till like midnight. I'm also opening another business called the House of Cards. I have a great collection going back to 1905, all black and white, Las Vegas vintage cards. They're from all over town, like the old Sands or the old Dunes or the old downtown Golden Nugget. So what I did was I took a deck of cards, 52 cards, and I put one picture in each one. And so now you have vintage playing cards. houseofcardslv.com. That should be up in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Awesome, Hollis. You are one of my favorites in that you're always doing something and you're always taking action. So you are inspiring in that way for sure. Awesome, Hollis. Well, thanks for joining us today, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Llama. That's my favorite thing with you, Rob. I can't help it.
One day we'll tell that story to everybody.
Let's do it again sometime.
Thanks, Hollis.
All right, enjoyed it.
All right.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, see ya. Thank you guys for listening to the Dad the Best I Can show. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Actually, 5 stars. We could do better than that. Brooks? Infinity stars. Cameron? How many stars?
Infinity 1,000.
Infinity 1,000. You got to one-up them in this household. Thanks. See ya.